all doing? Welcome to my channel Beyond Headlines Current Affairs by Lakshmi. In continuation with my previous topic, Introduction to Political Science, I promised that I will be doing the part 2. So here we go for part 2. Dear subscribers who prefer this is for you. So, scope of political science is the subject matter that is covered by the political science. So, scope covers all the topics that are under the study of political science. So, let us discuss topic by topic. So, the first one is, it discusses the relationship between man with state, society and government. So, man is a social animal. So, this statement was issued by Aristotle. Aristotle said that man is a social animal. So, that means man cannot live in isolation. Man needs the company of his fellow men. Unless and until he is in the company of his fellow men, he will not be able to fulfill his desires, wants or needs. And apart from that, if man is alone, he will not be able to understand what a society is, what is the role of man in a society, and how man and society are codependent on each other. And same is the case with man and state. State requires people to be identified as state. That is the first thing. And people in the state have their obligations that are to be performed from time to time. And each person who is living in the state should be the member of the state, which is what we call it as citizenship. So, man and state have a very complex relationship. At the same time, they have duty towards each other, wherein it is the duty of the state to protect the man and it is the duty of the man to obey the state. Next, a relationship of man between and government. So, government again is an organization which regulates and controls the external behavior of human beings so that everybody can live peacefully in the state. So, and the relation between man and government is that some of the men are in the ruling side and some are on the ruled category. So, man obeys the policies and rules and regulations that are prepared by the government for the smooth running of the state. So, and this eternal perennial issue of establishing the relationship between man and state, society and government forms the crux of the study of political science. Next, study of state. So, political science studies about the origin of the state, the evolution of the state and state in its present nature. So, how state originated. So, there have been so many theories that have been discussed where how state was formed, and the most rational theory is the social contract theory, wherein before the state was formed, which we call it as a state of nature, people existed in the society where they enjoyed absolute freedom without any restrictions. But this absolute freedom was not conducive to all, because they couldn't enjoy the freedom, because in people or in human beings we always have two categories of people, that is the stronger ones and the weaker ones, and the stronger ones usually dominated the weaker ones in enjoying their freedom, so that the weaker ones ended up in not enjoying their freedom. So they thought, this is not going to work out, let us do something. So they all came together and had a discussion and came to an agreement that the stronger ones are going to protect the weaker ones and the weaker ones are going to provide for the stronger ones. So, in this situation, there has been an agreement that has been reached. A contract has been signed in a social setup, which is called as social contract. And this theory was first put up by Thomas Hobbes and later by John Locke and further by Jean-Jacques Rousseau. So these three political thinkers in spite of belonging to different time zones or time ranges, came up with the same theory and discussed this theory in connection or in context with the society they lived in. For Thomas Hobbes, the society was very bleak, very grave, and man suffered in that kind of setup. And Locke, for the first time, identified natural rights as a part of the state that was in existence, and even before the existence of the state, that is in the state of nature, people enjoyed their natural rights. And these natural rights ceased to exist once the contract was signed and civil rights came into place. And the last one is Jean-Jacques Rousseau. Jacques Rousseau implied and relied heavily on something called as general will. So the basic concept is the same, but the theory themselves, the theories that are put forward by these guys themselves had a variation in interpretation. So these discuss the origin of state, and there is another theory which is called the divine theory, that we of all religions believe that God made state. So political science discusses all these different theories and explains them. And it studies state in its initial form, how it evolved from the ancient state to the modern state, and what a future state is going to look like. So that is about study of state. And next is study of government. So when state is there, government is there. So political science studies about the various forms of government like monarchy, aristocracy, democracy, dictatorship, and tyranny. And it also studies about various organs of the government like legislature, executive, and judiciary. And also it discusses about the relationship between state and government. Okay, so the different forms as we discussed. Monarchy means rule of one, that is king or queen. Aristocracy is the rule of few, usually belonging to a royal lineage. And democracy is the rule of the people. A dictatorship, we all know, is one guy from the military background dominating the others. And tyranny is something, a ruler who is kind of cruel. So these are the different forms. And when we come back to different organs, legislature is the body or the organ of the government which makes laws, executive implements the laws, and judiciary interprets the laws and punishes lawbreakers. So all these things are discussed in the scope of political science. So political science studies government in its forms and its organs and gives a detailed explanation so as to be understood even by the common layman. And next is study of institutions and associations. In state, there are so many other institutions and associations which are there apart from the government. So political science studies about these various institutions and associations that are there. What are its roles, their roles and their structures and their functions, and what are the limitations and what kind of control the state has on these associations and institutions. Next, study of rights and duties. So political science studies about the kind of rights the people or the persons have in state and what are the duties they are obligated to do. So when we talk about rights and duties cannot be discussed as two individual concepts, rather they are one. So one without the other is obviously incomplete. Rights without duties or duties without rights are not complete. They complement each other. Where there are rights, there are duties. Where there are duties, there are rights. So much so that almost all the constitutions in the world have adopted both of them together. Okay, so by studying political science, a person can know what his rights are so that he can protect them, and also what his duties are, so he can fulfill the obligations that he has towards the state. And next one is study of comparative governments and politics. So as we already discussed, political science studies about various forms of government. So, and in studying the various forms of government, it compares different forms of governments and studies the merits and demerits and the kind of politics that is involved in there. So, and try to get a best form. So, political science gives us an opportunity to understand various forms of governments, their working styles and their merits and demerits. And next is study of national and international affairs. So, as students of political science, it is our unsaid rule that we follow current affairs, right? So, in following current affairs, we follow both the national ones, the international ones. And why international current affairs are important? We are just members of one state, because no state is self-sufficient and it always depends on other states for its existence and progress. So, in that we sometimes we get entangled in those issues, and a study of international affairs gives us an understanding of how the world politics work and what kind of solutions are beneficial for all. And national affairs, yes, for example, international affairs, we can take the case of Russia and Ukraine war and how it is affecting the economies of other countries. For example, when Russia-Ukraine war started, the price of sunflower oil in India just skyrocketed. And same is the case when we look at the case of Israel and Iran, or Israel and Lebanon, or Israel and Syria. So these are the different. So they have the after effects or side effects, and they are not limited to one region. Okay, so since international affairs affect all of us, it is very important we study them, we understand them, so that we as a people can sometimes suggest a solution or help our leaders to reach a solution, something like that. And national affairs, yeah, there are so many going on. Like we had this, I think 2-3 years back, we had this farmers protesting against the farmer laws. So much so they went up to the Red Fort, where after the flag hoisting ceremony was done, unfurling ceremony was done on the January 26th, and they just ran around in their tractors as a protest against the farm laws that are being proposed by the central government. And that kind of protests eventually saw the central government withdraw the laws. So that gives us a perspective of what's happening, what kind of policies the government is making, whether those policies are useful for the people, or if people don't find them useful, or if they find them detrimental to their progress, how people would react. So that is the reason why we should study international and national affairs, and that's how political science throws light on those aspects wherein we are able to understand in a better way than compared to the general public. We, the students of political science, can understand it in a better way when compared to the general public. General public will usually know the surface thing, but we, the students of political science, we go dig deeper into the issue and check what's going on at the grassroots level. So that gives us an extra advantage of understanding the issue right at hand. Okay. Next, study of modern political analysis. So in modern aspect, political science is more about analysis of what's happening and how it again how it affects the country as a whole, the state as a whole, or the world as a thing. So modern political analysis gives whether the policy is followed or the policy is framed or accurate, or whether they are correct for the situation that is being presented. And next is study of public policy. So public policies, political science is called as policy science, because for any policy to be implemented, it is the political science or the political aspect, administration kind. They are the people who create the laws and implement them. So by for any aspect of the society, the laws are created by the political aspect. So for whether it's an agricultural policy or a defense policy or an education policy, the policy may be different and related to a different field, but the policy is being created by the political side of the thing. So by understanding